Do you want an amazing marriage? Are you ready to take your marriage to the next level? Then stick around for Your Marriage Matters podcast with marriage coach Lynn. Let's put some fun and sizzle into your relationship.
Last week, we talked about discovering a pregnancy and what the prenatal period might look like. Today, let's talk about infancy. Suddenly, the two of you have expanded into three. I remember coming home from the hospital with my first child and feeling weird. What do I do now? We had no family in the area. We lived in California at the time, and most of our friends and family were on the East Coast. My baby boy had colic. I hardly got any sleep for 2 weeks. I was a walking zombie. When I cut his fingernails one day, I nicked the skin and caused bleeding, triggering screaming from my son. I immediately called my husband in panic. Oh no, what do I do? What do I do? I'm never cutting his fingernails again. And I didn't for at least a year. The doctor said to not resume sexual activity until after the 6-week appointment, so I complied. I later asked the reason for this rule, and the doctor said, "We don't want another pregnancy so soon." I thought there was some medical reason, and I was disappointed about the controlling factor and assumptions the doctor's office made about their patients. On the matter of sex, some women have a hard time going from the mother role back to the wife role. Some women were physically wounded in the birth process to the point where they prefer to abstain for several months. Some women are disappointed that they look 6 months pregnant after they just gave birth. For each couple it will be different, and patience is usually required. I like to say, everything is temporary. I was not around babies growing up, so I was nervous to give my baby his first bath. I had to call a nurse to get breastfeeding advice. I had mastitis and soreness. I didn't feel any marital struggles during the infancy though, so that was good. But I was mainly tired and trying to figure out mothering. We moved when our son was 6 months old to the East Coast for a new job opportunity and lived out of a hotel for a month or two while our new townhouse was being built. It was difficult living out of a hotel, but we were happy. What's beautiful about infancy is that it's a time for each spouse to open up. Love flows from the heart, and oftentimes husbands express more emotion associated with womanly behaviors, such as cute little cooing and close personal interaction with this new being. Lots of affection and demonstration of love and emotion. It's a time for the husband and wife to form a new love between themselves as a mother and a father. And for those of you who've gone through this, I'm sure you will agree that it's just truly miraculous and awesome when you add a baby to your life. Sometimes the husband gets jealous and feels replaced by the baby. The wife used to show attention to her husband, and now the baby consumes her. He thinks she has fallen in love with the baby. And in the past, breasts might have been a man's domain, and now they are for the baby. It may take time to return to more sexual ways or to feel comfortable blending your new roles of parent along with lovers. Sometimes people temporarily don't feel erotic or sexy, but more maternal and paternal, and it seems to clash for some couples. Just know that it may take time to blend these roles. Remember to approach this new parenting mission as a team, to forge ahead, forming a closer bond about parenting. What else can happen during your baby's infancy? Sometimes negative things can be triggered depending on the husband and wife's upbringing. Hopefully, PTSD or trauma does not arise. You now have your own way of raising your children, and hopefully it will be an improvement to your upbringing. Depending on how much time off you have from work or the father has off, it's kind of sad when the dad or both of you have to return to work. This can take a lot of juggling and will require more involvement from both of you. If the mom enjoyed a full-time job or career and has now chosen to stay home, it might feel a little odd to have your baby as the center of your days. Your baby needs and wants to spend time with you. You might end up with a new direction in life. Maybe join a mom's group at your church or in your community. You could search for meetup groups. Some women who left the workplace found work opportunities from home. Postpartum adjustment can be very difficult. Pay attention to whether or not you have the mild baby blues, which includes sleep deprivation or sadness about your past life. Some women are sad to be finished with pregnancy. They felt special and they were carrying life, and now their womb is empty. In fact, women are likely to have long labors if they don't feel ready to become a mother. There is an unconscious withholding that goes on with some women. Also, some will miss the everyday hustle and bustle of their former workplace. They might feel they are missing out if they plan a 4-month maternity leave. The next step up from the baby blues is postpartum depression. Postpartum depression can set in if the feelings are stronger and more persistent. You might have a gloom cloud hanging over you and don't know why. Do you cry unexpectedly? Are you afraid of harming your baby? You might be lethargic and have no interest in much of anything. You may be exhausted. The husband should keep an eye on this. Postpartum depression can linger if the birth experience was shocking or horrible, or if the baby was born with a problem or spent time in the NICU. The first few days of your baby's life could be tense and not what you expected. The next level up is extremely serious. It's called postpartum psychosis. And what that is, it's a mental illness and it needs immediate attention. It should not go untreated. Symptoms include delusions, hallucinations, rapid mood swings, manic or hyperactive behavior, unable to communicate normally, wanting to do harm to the baby. It is very rare and affects maybe 1 or 2 out of 1,000 women. When you hear of women shaking, harming, or murdering their babies, it was probably postpartum psychosis. Other postpartum challenges, a big one is chores around the house and having free time. Some things are probably going to slip. The meals, the cleanliness of the house, the hours of conversation you used to have, the types of conversation. Hey, Kate smiled for the first time. Yay! She pooped in the toilet. Yay! You know, it's silly. All of these funny things when you were childless, when you would hear other couples talk about and cheer about, seems so frivolous. But now that you have a baby, it's really a big deal. The milestones. If you had a lot of activity outside of the home, you might be spending more time in the home with the baby at first. If you were used to a lot of separate time as a childless couple, you will find that you will probably need to negotiate and ask permission to do separate things outside the home. Yes, ask permission. Hey, would it be okay if I went golfing for 5 hours today? You know, don't just assume and resume your old life before baby. It takes permission equals respect. So be sure to be respectful and helpful to each other. The important thing to remember is that things are going to be very different, and rather than criticize, find solutions. Be helpful, be understanding. Care for the baby and yourself, especially when it comes to sleep and nutrition. You might have to cut down time on phone or visiting others. In fact, set your phone aside and be sure to relate to your child and spend less time in your virtual media and social media activities. Also, stick to your boundaries. If you don't want to have many visitors at the house the first 2 to 3 weeks of your baby's life, tell people. What you could do is thank them for their concern and say something like, well, we'd love to have you visit when the baby's a few weeks old. Something really helpful. When I moved to a new location and hardly knew anybody, and I got pregnant and had a newborn, so let's just say we were there maybe about a year, less than a year, I was shocked at people's generosity, people I didn't even know. It was just really wonderful. You can see paying it forward and just concern in your community. We were members of a homeschool support group of about 50 families, and they had this sign-up roster to make meals for new mothers. They also made meals for people in crisis situations or when there was a death in the family and things like that. And I hardly knew these families, but 3 times a week for a month, right after the baby was born, we had meals delivered to our home, made by some of the group members. And the portions were so large that they carried over to the next day for leftovers. So I was all set for a month, and this was so relieving because when you're not getting sleep, when you're not wanting to go grocery shopping, and just having to think about it. It's one less thing to think about, and we were just so grateful. It was wonderful. If you know of a new mom in town or in your neighborhood or in a group you're a member of, offer to bring a meal or do an act of service that would take the burden off of her. If you're a grandparent, do the same thing. Ask what you can do to help. If the new mom has a 3-year-old and the newborn, ask if you can have the 3-year-old come over for 2 nights to let the mom focus on the baby. Many parents don't want babysitting right away for the young child, so don't take it personally if the new mom does not take you up on your offer. All right, another thing that is interesting in this society is that people think infancy equals isolation and that you're stranded in your home and that you have no stimulation, just you and the baby. I don't know who paints this picture, but we are connected through cell phones, social media, friendships. We're not alone and we're not isolated. There's plenty to do, plenty of people, and there's this assumption that a mom's life is exclusively tied to her babies. Stop looking at yourself in the mirror and wishing you could shrink back down to your pregnancy weight, your pre-pregnancy weight. Give yourself a year, not a month. You have more important matters at hand. You are a mother. There's this big push in our country to slim down quickly. Well, the celebrities who are able to do this, they have to have a fantastic appearance for their profession, and they make the time, they have the money, they're usually surrounded by helpers to whip them back in shape. They might even have a personal trainer coming over every single day. Infancy is a time of transition, transitioning into motherhood, parenthood, and discovering new roles in your marriage. You won't get this time back, so please enjoy it and keep your priorities straight. Until next time, get some sleep and make your marriage great.